Hello, mathematicians. This is Mr. Smith back with a series now. It's called the Math Nickname Series. This is episode 1. We have equivalent fractions or fracciones equivalentes. As you see in the picture, 1/2 is equal to 2/4. We're going to figure out more about that in a moment. So a lot of us know about nicknames. Nicknames are names that people give each other for fun or to show their affection for each other. You can call people who you know either their nickname or formal name. My formal name is Leroy, but my nickname is Lee. I'm still the same person, like it says here. They're still the same people. Here are some examples of some common formal names and nicknames. So you see Annette, you can either call her Anna or Ann as a nickname. Or William, you can call him Will or Bill for a nickname. It's still the same people. And we'll see that equivalent fractions, they're still the same numbers, but we might just give them different delineations. So let's see. So here are our objectives for today. We will create equivalent fractions with visual models. We will create equivalent fractions using multiplication. We will say equivalent fractions have a different number of parts, but they are the same size. Kind of how nicknames are, right? They're the same person, but they're just different names. Same thing with equivalent fractions. They have a different number of parts, but it's still the same size, still the same fraction. We will say I must multiply my numerator and denominator by the same number to create equivalent fractions. Let's get started. So here's our key vocabulary for today. Equivalent fractions. As you see here, I'm going to highlight in yellow the most important parts you need to know. These are fractions with the same value, meaning they have the same size. If you're looking here at this picture, you see one whole and let's say 1/2. Well, 2/2 make one whole. Well, let's look at how many fourths make 1/2. I'm going to use green to show you that. Oh, there are 2/4 that make up 1/2. They're the same size, but they have a different number of parts. Say that with me. 2/4 is equivalent to 1/2. Awesome. They are the same size, but have a different number of parts. What are they? Excellent. They're the same size with a different number of parts. At the bottom, you see you can make them by multiplying or dividing the numerator or denominator. We're going to get into that later. Oh, I don't know if you all know this, but when you see that star appear on the screen, that means it's a cognate alert. So in English, we have our text in blue, and in Espanol, we have our text in orange. So the way we say equivalent fractions in English is equivalent fractions. The way we say it in Espanol is fracciones equivalentes. Remember, cognates look similar and sound similar. Here's our next key vocabulary word for our lesson in this series. Denominator. In this case, the denominator, I'm going to highlight it in yellow. It's the bottom number in a fraction showing the parts of the whole. For an example, it says 1 apple has been cut in half. A half is a fraction. So let's see, the denominator is at the bottom. And that lets me know that there are 2 parts here. So that means in the whole, I have 2 parts. Now I'm going to write something on the screen in purple. So 1/2 is saying that I have 1 out of the 2 parts. 1 whole is saying I have both of those 2 parts. Remember, our denominator is our bottom number of the fraction, and it represents the whole number of parts. That hashtag represents numbers in math. The whole number of parts. What does the denominator represent? You got it, the whole number of parts. Let's get to creating some equivalent fractions. Oh, there's a cognate alert. So I see that star. Let me erase some things here for you really quickly so we can see the cognate alert come up. Oh, cognate alert. It says in English denominator and in Espanol denominador. Here's our first example, and we're using a visual model here. So our visual model has 3 parts, so our denominator is going to be 3. How many parts does our visual model have? You guessed it, 3 parts. So what's your denominator? 3, excellent. How many parts are shaded? Wonderful, 2 parts are shaded. So what's our numerator? 2, excellent. So we call our fraction 2/3. Now let's look at the example here. 6 friends shared a cake equally. The cake is sliced into thirds. We see that. How many friends ate 2/3 of the cake? Well, let's highlight some important information here. I'm going to use yellow. So there are 6 friends. They shared a cake equally. The cake is sliced into thirds. And the question here I'm going to underline in red. In purple, how many friends ate 2/3 of the cake? Well, I only had thirds here, and it's 6 friends. That doesn't make sense. I gotta find a way to make our cake into 6 parts. I wonder what I can do. Well, here's what I would do. I would take my existing 3 parts and break it into 6 by doing this. I would go, let's cut these pieces in half like that. Oh, now I have 6 parts. I broke my 3 parts into 6 by breaking them all in half. Or, you'll see in the next example, multiplying it by 2. Because now we have a row here and a row here. That's what I mean by I multiply by 2. So how many 6 do we see now? We have 6 parts now all together. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4 6. So 2/3 is equal to 4 6. So how many friends ate 2/3 of the cake? 4 6 of the friends ate 2/3 of the cake. Excellent. So remember, 4 6, it has a different number of parts, but they are the same size. Say that with me. 4 6 has a different number of parts than 2/3, but they are the same size. Perfect. Moving on. Now we have multiplication. So we have 2/3 is equal to blank over blank. Well, we already know the answer from before, but let's go over it again, just starting fresh. I'm going to highlight in yellow the important information in my question. 6 friends shared a cake equally. Well, I know I have 6 friends. They shared the cake equally. Remember, fractions are about equal parts. The cake is sliced into thirds. Well, we see that because our denominator is 3 there. How many friends ate 2/3 of the cake? Well, let's see. Let's underline that. How many friends ate 2/3 of the cake? Wonderful. Well, we can multiply. So I'm trying to get to 6. So let's look at my denominator, that 3. And we're multiplying here. What we're trying to figure out is 3 times a number is equal to 6. 3 times a number is equal to 6. Oh, I need to skip count. 3, 6. Oh, I know what it is. It's 2. Because 3 times 2 is equal to 6. Now here's something to remember. When you're finding equivalent fractions, you have to multiply your denominator and your numerator by the same number. Because remember, equivalent fractions may have a different number of parts, but they are the same. You guessed it, they are the same size. So we have to multiply by the same number. So what I do to my bottom, I do to my top. And what I do to my top, I do to my bottom. In this case, I multiplied by 2 at the bottom for the denominator. So I'm going to multiply by 2 at the top. Now this gets easy. 2 times 2, we know that as 4. Oh, I got the same thing. When I multiplied my denominator 3 by 2, I got 6. When I multiplied my numerator by 2, I got 4. I got 4/6. So 4/6 of the friends ate 2/3 of the cake. Remember, equivalent fractions have a different number of parts, but they are what? The same size, and we represent that with the equal sign. This is important to remember. Let's go back to our vocabulary. Remember, we talked about equivalent fractions. Equivalent fractions are fractions with the same value, meaning they have a different number of parts, but they have the same size. You can either use a picture, like this example here uses a picture. You can use a picture to show it, a model, or you can use multiplication like we did as well. And remember, cognitive alert, we say equivalent fractions in English as equivalent fractions. And in Espanol, we say fracciones equivalentes. Remember, equivalent fractions have a different number of parts, but they are the same size. And let's look at our denominator here. Our denominator, I'm going to highlight this for us. Our denominator is the bottom number of the fraction that shows the whole number of parts. So our denominator is at the bottom. Our denominator here is 2 because there are 2 apples, slices out of the whole. Now, remember, our denominator is going to help us out with finding equivalent fractions. When we multiplied, we can multiply by our denominator by a certain number to get an equivalent fraction. Oh, cognitive alert. In English, we say denominator. In Espanol, we say denominador. Thank you for everything. Remember, this is episode 1 of Math Nicknames. Equivalent fractions are like nicknames. They are the same size, but they have a different number of parts. So when we get to our next episode, episode 2 is going to talk about improper fractions and mixed numbers. They are also nicknames. So get ready. Stay tuned.